just give us a little bit of background. So we have conducted a global CEO survey, primarily a manufacturing sector focused survey, which we did globally. So it's known as PwC CEO survey. And there was subsequently a India cut, which was published last year as well. So some of the findings which will help us to kind of set the context for our esteemed panelists, I thought let me give 2-3 bullet points before we delve into some of the topics. So 28% of Indian CEOs list technology disruption as a key threat. They are highly exposed in the next 2 years. So we can imagine the kind of disruption these CEOs are expecting from various digital interventions, and they wanted to get themselves gear up for this, get themselves ready for this, and of course, lot of digital initiatives which are happening in the industry right now. We'll hear more use cases, but that's the bedrock of the whole concept. Then more than half of the Indian CEOs planning to integrate their AI and data initiatives into the technology platform and the business processes. So what primarily does it mean? That the AI and data enabled decision making is something which they are looking forward to. And the last one is that globally they are looking at Gen AI. So we know it's a buzzword now, but data, AI, and Gen AI. Gen AI is going to be a kind of a technology which is going to help bring in the efficiency, bring in the cost reduction programs, as well as help them to help them to increase revenues and the sales outlooks. So these are the key 3 themes around which we thought we are going to talk today and take the inputs from our panelists. So over to you, Mangal. In your experience, how steel industry is leveraging AI, ML, data technologies, and what is the future looks like? Over to you, Mangal.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. I think it's very nice to see the house is full. And I'm sure, we'll able to do some justice to your expectation. So I'm very happy to represent Hitachi here. Hitachi is a Japanese originated and now global company. And steel is something very, very favorite to Hitachi. And, across the globe and in India, we work with some of the major steel makers. And I'll just, help you to understand with some background that, when you want to apply AI, ML, and data, so you have to know the domain. So the technology of operations, how the steel mills are working, the processes and the systems and the entire technology that goes into steel making, that is where Hitachi plays a very important role, as an operational technology provider. And then comes, with the age of computerization, digitalization, we started to see a lot of new things like PLCs and SCADAs and other systems, which are being deployed in different operations across these series of processes that are there in the steel making. And now with these machines, with this equipment, they are generating data in any case, because a lot of softwares are being deployed in any case, to increase the efficiency, to reduce the manual operations, make it more automated, even going all the way to robotized operations. So with the use of computers, with the use of these equipment, with the use of software, a lot of data is being produced. Now the question is what to do with this data. So obviously, as you hear, from our moderator that the entire ecosystem, be it anything else, but also the steel is very keenly focusing on the deployment of AI, ML, and generative AI. But the starting point is what I mentioned, the data. So data, whether it is being generated from the equipment, and you would see that there are different kind of equipment from different manufacturers. They don't talk to each other. So the first thing, before you can even comprehend the data, you have to collect data and put them into a level kind of platform, what you call a data lake. And to acquire this data and to put it into a lake, you need to make sure that you do a system integration kind of thing. So, in the different stages, as I mentioned, you would have equipment from all major companies who are, providing technology. So system integration is very, very important. And then once you have this system integration done, data acquisition done, then you understand the quantum of data, the type of data. And then you start now deploying the operational technology. So if I have data, if I know what output I want, then you start imagining that what kind of science do I deploy. So the whole idea of operational technology and IT and OT is the science behind the data to create an outcome which is very, very important. For example, you have this man, machine, material methods, which so far define all the 4 areas that need to be well defined, and a kind of efficiency created across to minimize disruptions, the failures, and maximize the uptime, the reliability. You do this reliability centric condition monitoring of different systems. So once you have an understanding of these processes, the data, then you have developed with the operation technology some kind of algorithms. So this algorithm is basically collating, and this is where the invention, this is the new invention, this is the disruption, creating new algorithms. So this is what even Hitachi is doing, with all our clients. And, first of all, doing system integration, then understanding different levels of data, and then bringing data to a point, and then deploying our patented algorithms. So these algorithms can be run on site or even in the cloud. And then on top of that, you do this AI, ML, self-learning things, whatever data you have already produced, you may not need more data, but you need to have a constant view of the real-time visibility of your processes to make sure that every system, every process is, being monitored and looked at, and the data is coming out so that you are optimizing the end outcome. So end outcome is basically to provide the right product to the right customer. So there is a huge dynamic shift, as you see more and more consumption happening. It is not just one type of steel. It's a multiple type of products and, compositions and different size and shapes, different type of application. So you have to cater to a very, very dynamic consumption side. Therefore, planning is also very, very important. The scheduling, planning, dynamic planning. And so you use this AI, ML, not only in understanding how the whole system works, but also in defining a very optimized scheduling so that you can use the maximum of the capacity of these plants. So in nutshell, what I would say is, we are deploying softwares, whether it is electrical automation, robotization, or the drives that run the whole ecosystem, but also the scheduling and the supply chain management system. And on top of that, the predictive health of different equipment, ensuring that the failures can be seen before they happen and be ready with some kind of spares and the man and resources to carry out the maintenance without disrupting, without letting go of the uptime of the machine. So in a different ways, you can use this technology. And overall, the idea is to serve the customer. The idea is to create a sustainable planet. I think, the end objective of all of us is, to live a life which is comfortable and also make sure it is a sustainable and the planet is also served properly.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mangal, for your detailed explanation. Now, since you have touched upon supply chain, you have touched upon shop floor automation, you have touched upon how data is getting acquired from various machineries and then used in a right way. I will now move on to Andreas, who is also from very, very similar background. If you can throw some lights on the concepts which Mangal explained and how you are handling some of the challenges in terms of the data acquisition and then how you are using, overcome those challenges and using it for your business outcomes.
Okay, thank you very much. I have to thank also the organizations to have the opportunity to talk here. The colleague from Hitachi has spoiled some of the topics I would like to introduce. We, as the engineering company supplying production equipments, have decided some years ago to change the way our plant are used in order to help the customer, the final customers, to have also a different perception of what our plant is doing. Why? Because, the plant is, in our vision, a hub of several kind of information and data. The plant, as the colleague from Hitachi has introduced, collect data from itself, no? In particular, the critical part, critical equipment, a motor, a bearings, or the like, but collects also data from the process, because the plant is making a process. This means that you have designed a process, but the plants apply the process sometimes as you have decided, or sometimes differently. These differences can be applied to the product. So you are targeting some, in case of steel, mechanical properties, for example, and you obtain a different results. So our plant is a hub of all information. The information are collected now on a digital platform, Horizon. The information are compared with our knowledge. We are a company established 140 years ago in the mechanical sector, so we know very well how the plant must be designed and should operate. When you apply your knowledge to the information you have gathered, of course, you can take a decision. Now, due to the fact that the decision have to be made very shortly, here the intervention of intelligence, artificial intelligence, machine learning, which is a new way of saying artificial neural network, which are known from the Second World War. Now you can be helped in taking decision which sometimes can be taken by the machine itself. So, for example, taking on maintenance, our plant have embedded not only the digital platform, which is sold for free into the equipment, but are full covered with the sensors measuring the friction, the wear, the movement, three-axial movement of something. And in this way, you can modify your approach to the maintenance, for example, because a plant should work 24 hours a day, 12 months a year, no? Otherwise, your yield and your return of investment is lower. So with all this data, we are now moving towards the reactive maintenance. Something is brought, you have to change, but you stop the plant. To the predictive maintenance, okay, I have collected for months the behavior of a critical bearing, no? Maybe the bearing could cost some dollars, no? But the downtime of the plant is $1 million, no? Could be. So when you can pass through the reactive maintenance. So the machine itself understand from the behavior of the past and can tell the operator, pay attention, in a week you have to stop the plant and to change these specific bearings. All these things are collected in our platform. So the platform, which is based on digital twin of the plant, have every information on the life of the plant itself. So you can say, you can understand if, for example, in the winter the plant behaves differently than in the summer, because the temperature are different, the temperature of the water is different, and the behavior of the plant and the process is different. And you can apply your brain, your knowledge, to understand how to modify your operative practices. This means that due to the fact that you leave the machine to do the basic work, you can look at the higher level topics, the real added value, where your brain should be engaged.
Thanks. Thank you very much, Andreas, for your detailed explanation. Now let's move the needle from supply chain, shop floor, industry 4.0 to the distribution and logistics side of it, which is like moving closer to your customer. So that's where I bring in Jiten, now your expertise and your experience in this particular area, and how you are seeing data and AI and various emerging technologies are helping you to serve your customers better.
Thanks a lot, Ed. Hi, everybody, and it's great to see people, interested in technology and things that will take us forward, things that might not be seen today. But, to me, that's where, where the future lies. And we were just talking backstage, and a small disclaimer: I'm not a techie. My co-founder, Mr. Arun Menon, is. He was supposed to do the event. But I'll try to pitch in from a layman's point of view what tech means to us. So yes, there is a lot of technology that is going into manufacturing, and it definitely should be. How the machines are going to start taking their own decisions, how they're going to get smarter, how the real-time data, real-time information is going to get your production, your quality to its optimum efficiency, capacity. All of that is absolutely amazing. I represent Stainless Bazaar. Stainless Bazaar is India's first tech-enabled, and we call it tech-enabled. We're not a tech company. We're a tech-enabled company. We are into processing and distribution of stainless steel, delivering last mile to the end customer. And India is, today, it constitutes 80% of MSMEs. These 80% manufacturers or consumers of raw material of stainless steel, they're located in the smallest and farthest of the cities that you can imagine. They don't have the wherewithal of processing, of inventory management, of technology, and these are the factories that are completely underserved today. And that's our attempt to become a bridge between a large manufacturer who is already deploying technologies from the esteemed gentleman sitting next to me. But then what we are doing is we're taking that material in the most efficient way to the last mile consumer of that stainless steel. And you just gave me a buzzword today, from reactive to predictive. And that's exactly what we are doing. That instead of made to order, so today how it works is a small manufacturer will tell a local processor or a trader that I need so and so goods processed in this shape, size, or grade or finish. Unfortunately, there is no system, there is no forecasting, there is no data collection which can actually do this predictive inventory. So that guy will then go to his big, wholesaler or a trader in Mumbai or Delhi, pick up the coil, get it processed in the most inefficient manner that he can, get it transported to the small end, manufacturer. And to me, this is where the crux of the innovation, the disruption lies for us. What we are doing is we are bringing in technology. We have 10,000 manufacturers on our platform today. We believe there are more than 50,000 such small factories. Now, 50,000 factories across this country, imagine being underserved. And that's what the technology is going to help us. Again, technology is not going to serve these customers, but it's going to make sure that we are able to serve these customers. We are going to put processing and distribution centers across India, but then what inventory to build? This is where technology comes in. The data that we are collecting from these customers, their manufacturing patterns, their, the seasonal patterns, this is what, the AI and the data collection and analysis is going to not only predict inventory for us, is going to do price forecasting for us, price forecasting for our suppliers. Because, today these large manufacturers have absolutely no contact with these 50,000 small MSMEs. So what they are making, the way they are making, the way they are pricing is completely based on what they think is needed, not what is actually needed. So, this kind of technology will be able to embolden and empower them to actually take the decisions in the real time. So that's where tech comes in. We will talk about it more, but this is where for us, even in terms of customer engagement, how many sales people are there to even talk to these MSMEs? Absolutely none, especially from the large manufacturers. So we are creating an army of AI bots, agents who are actually going to talk to them, understand their problems. Maybe this will lead to some kind of innovation that the manufacturers don't even know is needed. So, that is the communication channel that we are opening through these AI agents. And let's go forward as we discuss on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jiten. Shifting focus to Mangal, back to you. So now I know one of the areas, Industry 4.0 or 5.0, requires, digital twins, require connected / smart factory. So in your experience, how are you finding connected operations topic relevant in today's world?
I think this is a topic, which is very close to our new business. So as I mentioned in the very beginning, Hitachi is working on three things. One is planet, around the planet. So, how to provide sustainability across not only in our own factories, but our ecosystem, and then more so in the customers that we serve. So let's say, the steel manufacturers being our customers. So we want to make sure that the equipment that we provide them are used to the full capacity. They are completely sweat out, before, and so one is this, the planet and the sustainability across the ecosystem, and making sure that, the resources that we consume are leading to net carbon zero, by 2030, partially, and then, completely by 2050. So that is one objective. But how to do that? I think one is the innovation, the new green technologies that we will bring. The second is the digitalization. So, and therefore, this connective, so we have now named our business as Connective Industries. Rather than, calling it, we are serving different industries, we are saying connective industry, because we have to connect each and every equipment, each and every resource that is working there, whether, it is starting from the raw material to the different kind of software-driven logic controllers, or the SCADA to the man-machine material management and the processes, completely the workflow management system. So we are making sure that we create a platform. So taking all this information, then we create a complete platform, connective operations platform, where you have data coming from different places, and you are running different algorithms and optimizing it efficiently to make sure there is a perfect balance, and then creating a dashboard for your stakeholders. So this dashboard is very important because when you operate in silos, the departmental manager of one particular department may be, creating the best outcome for that department, but it is not fitting into the whole system. The whole system as a whole has to work optimally, which means some people who are working, very 24 into 7, let's say, and some are working less. So they all have to, create a kind of a harmony within their own ecosystem. So this connected operation using our digital technologies is the fundamental. Once you have achieved this, then it's very important based on your operational technologies and this connective operation, you can create a digital twin. So it is easier said than done, creating a digital twin, because one, it's a humongous amount of systems and equipments and processes working together, generating data, asking for very high speed computations. So if you have to then perform them real time, this is even more challenging. So that is why now the new thing is, supercomputers, we say supercomputers are required, large number of servers, and then the data centers are being set up, making sure all this data is churned out, efficiently, quickly, giving out the end objective. And very soon you will see the focus on quantum computing, because the amount of work that AI and generative AI will ask for would mean that we have to now move to quantum computing. So in short, to do this a complete justice to the entire connective industries, connective operations, while we have the basic framework, while we have the algorithms, while we have the a kind of a holistic dashboard system, the question is how to then make it, functionally as efficient with the computing powers that we need from the different computer. So all this together will have to be invested. So now the question is, who are these our customers? Who are these clients? The technology is available, but who are these first clients, who will come forward and, they say they stand for the planet. They stand for sustainability. They stand for serving, the large number of MSMEs, who, cannot spend on their capex, and they just need hand to mouth kind of. So the just in time, the demand supply, the scheduling, the supply chain management, the prediction, in terms of how this is going to be consumed over a period of time, and bringing that data back into the manufacturing. I think all this is all data driven, and therefore we need two things. One, as I said, the more and more computing power, and data centers, which is happening, but also some enabling early adopters, early customers. So if anybody, in this room or, outside room, whosoever is, is aligned with this kind of, so the whereabouts are available. So let's find a synergy. Hitachi will be very happy because we work with all major steel customers, and maybe, we join hands with the prediction of the steel, and then integrate with our supply chain management system that we run in different steel companies. I think collaboration is also very, very important. So we want to partner with our customers, clients, and also with people from Italy, those who produce equipment, so that these equipments are designed on a platform which automatically connects to our the framework. So you don't have to devise new interfaces. So it's very important. So we follow a common language, common standard, which is going forward becomes, the natural base level. And having done that, then I think we can deploy, the digital twins of the world, or, whatever, which will deliver. Ultimately, our objective should be one, to create sustainable planet, because that is the objective right now, making sure the humanity survives, to be able to survive together with the planet.
I'll come back on sustainability theme, because that's very close to my heart as well, and I know Andreas and all, we have spoken about it. We'll come back to that. Thank you very much, Mangal. Now, while Andreas, Mangal and Jiten, they are talking about a lot about usage of data, AI, ML, platform approach. acquisition of data, using data then for predictions, dashboards, data lake, digital twin. Uh, in your opinion, and you can quote your European experience as well, along with Indian experience, how is the readiness of the workforce of today to deal with such technology innovations or forward-looking enabling technologies? Because uh, definitely upskilling, reskilling is required on the shop floor to handle such areas. So anything you want to share on that would be very, very helpful. Over to you, Andreas.
Okay, thank you very much for these questions. This question, in Europe, we started the Green Deal some years ago. We spent a lot of time, and I was engaged personally in several task forces, no, and also operative in making calculations of the carbon footprint of some plants. What is, I think, very important is, of course, sharing the data, the information, the communicate something. So communicate with the different platforms is important because the data somewhere exists. Another important topic is the contamination. I think it's important to have on the same table people coming from different experience, because he knows about his final customers, which are different from my final customers and are different from their final customers. But his experience, I think, could be helpful for me, because if I know what his final customer are looking for, I can understand if I can offer some application into my plant, no, in order to intervene before instead after. This, from our point of view, has meant that we, for example, specifically for sustainability, we decided to start a research and development project in order to understand how we can limit the use of water, because in the plant, use of water is a topic, because typically you reuse the same water, but some part you have to include as new one. And also the fact that you use a certain amount of water means that you use pumps. Pumps use electricity, power, and the power is, in particular, for example, here in India, is obtained by using coal, so with a certain level of carbon footprint. So we decided to understand how we can reduce the need of water with an intervention, of course, on the designing of the plant and on the process, because water is also used during the process. The second level was to measure the carbon footprint. A rolling mill, the impact is very low, but is different from zero. So you have to collect the data, and we have designed a specific application named Cerberus, which is inside the Horizon platform, which collect all the data relevant to the carbon footprint. So measure the power, measure the water, measure everything. And with this app, we are able to prepare a final report, which is calculated online by the software, which is prepared at the end of the productions. So each bar, each rail can exit our rolling mill with a certain kind of certificate. In my idea, talking with him, I said, okay, the report could be transferred digitally to his platform, and the customer will buy something. He knows the carbon footprint during the process. And I think it's a great advancement, because policies in this period are placing a foot on the brake around sustainability, but the market is going to green independently of what the policymakers are thinking. So we are ready to support our customer in understanding their carbon footprint and be prepared to share with the final customer which is their carbon footprint, their sustainability. Of course, monitoring is the first step. You know what you are doing, then you can improve, then you can work to go zero. We are ready.
You want to, since Andreas, you already touched upon the ESG sustainability and green steel concept. Maybe Mangal, you want to add to it from your experience, and then Jiten will come back to you.
So I'll take the previous question which you asked, Andreas. I think, we talked about innovation. We talked about, the changing dynamic situation. And with the adoption of digital technologies, what you need, today is much more new set of skills, to manage, to handle these digital systems. So the need of digital engineers is becoming much more pronounced and very profound. And, we feel very much, the need to upskill the existing operational people into the digital skills. So when you have to deploy, the IoT and AI and ML, this is actually a very different world. It is easier said, we, do operational and digital technologies, but when you have to combine these two together, these are two different worlds. They have a totally different thinking process coming from legacy, 100 years of operational, and digital is only 50 to 60 years old. And the new generation is much more digital, but they lack experience of the operational side. So how do you marry these two together? At least what we are trying to do is to work with institutions, work internally, and upskill, the existing staff with the data and the digital IoT kind of skills. And also, with the institutions trying to make sure that, the new crop of engineers are, fully equipped to be deployed in digitalization of this whole ecosystem. So this is very, very important. But the second, we also focus, greatly on the well-being of the human resources, whether they are working on conventional system or the digital engineers. So the well-being is very important with the changing, society and pressure of outperforming. The mental and the work-life balance is also very, very important. So, the focus has to be there in the well-being of your employees and the skills, not only the technical skills. And therefore, that leads to stress management within the factories. And one of the most important in such steel factories is the safety, health, and the environment. So we say that, safety is no compromise on safety. I mean, the quality even comes secondary. Safety comes very, very high. Then quality. Then the commitments of the production and delivery, and cost is at the end. So you can see, we have to push cost out, of course, make it affordable, but safety. So when this whole ecosystem of SHE, the mental well-being, and the capability is put together, what we will attract is, a diverse talent. So then, lead to diversity and inclusion. When all of these factors work together, I think we will be equipped to deal with the next level of demands, and especially in India, which has to intake a lot of the students which come out of universities and colleges to, to integrate into our manufacturing or into our industry ecosystem. So I think we have to work hand in hand. And the government, of course, policies should devise such policies which help to create this kind of very, very harmonious environment, helping students, helping universities, helping industry in maximizing the use. So I think this is very, very important. So I thought, I must say that. And another, new technology we talked about, digital twin, we talked about, is the augmented reality. Now, this is coming handy in making sure in a very short time you can equip your staff. So this is about the technical capability that you can enhance, and a lot of work is happening around that. And especially,
Yep.
it is very, very relevant in steel manufacturing because a lot of hazardous, gases, hazardous operations happen. You cannot train your people on the site so much as you would like to do. So therefore, this augmented and assisted virtual reality is going to play a very, very important role. And all those who are working on this, together with what we are also working as Hitachi, we want to make sure that we equip these resources, which are very, very important piece of the whole, I would say, the economy, or in the mankind. We have to invest in that also.
Thank you. Over to you, Jiten, for your comments.
Yeah, thanks. So before I address green steel, I would go back to what we were discussing on, creating a channel of communication between production and consumption. So what is lacking today is the producer are producing what they think is the right thing to produce in the quantities that they think is the right quantity to produce, and consumers, these are two different worlds which needs to be bridged, which is where technology comes in. I'm reminded of the Toyota way, they call it the one-piece flow, and they converted from when Mr. Henry Ford used to do batch-wise production, and Toyota flipped it, and they started doing a one-piece flow where a car will start at one point and it will end at the end of the assembly line. And with it obviously brings challenges because now you have to be super efficient if you want to start a car and finish a car in the same line rather than making different parts in different divisions. To me, this is what we think is going to revolutionize this industry. The day we can have a one information flow from the consumption to the production. Now imagine if a producer knows beforehand, this is the demand from the industry, this is the demand from the consumers, this is the grade and thickness and quality and the quantity of particular raw material that needs to be produced to cater to the immediate demand. One of the biggest, problem areas I see is a lot of capital is stuck in inventory at every stage because everybody is holding on inventory because nobody has any forecasting. So imagine if from a customer we can collate data, we can predict demand, we can relay it directly to a manufacturer that for the next month, this is the demand from maybe the north of India, west of India, whatever it is, and ideally whatever you produce should be consumed within 10 days or a week of production. That is how the supply chain efficiency will come in. That is how the capital efficiency will come in, where if you go to any small MSMEs, they're sitting on inventory for 2 months. And they actually take pride in it, which I find it very amusing because I think that's a survival instinct that human has, that once you know that you cannot do without it, you start loving it. It's a typical Stockholm syndrome. So these guys are in love with their 2 month inventory, fully knowing that this is yielding no result. This is completely dead capital because they have no communication or no guarantee that they would be fed just in time of what they want. So to me, the time has come to not only have technology in production, also distribution and consumption should be, attached and completely seamlessly attached to production. To the augmented reality or the VR that you spoke about, that's also something we are looking at. Again, from a customer point of view, on quality checks, on quality assurance. Now, when you have so many SKUs and so many products going to a customer who himself or herself are not necessarily having the capability to do that, can we actually have AR or a VR device doing the QC at the production area rather than having a human travel all the way, making a quality report and, wasting the time and the resources. So this is another technology we think is going to really be useful for a lot of quality issues and a lot of quality assurances that a small customer wants before they are paying for the goods. Finally, coming to green steel, I'm a firm believer green is all about saving your natural resources. In fact, I have another company where we are into, sorry, waste tire recycling. And, so I understand this very well. And for me, again, stainless steel, as long as you can preserve the natural resources, use them less. So when we recycle the tires, all we are doing is we're making sure that trees to be cut for virgin rubber as much as you can reduce. I think in the same way, if you can use as much scrap as possible. So in Stainless Bazaar, we are going to be using a lot of reverse logistics. If 70% steel is consumed or 80% stainless steel is consumed by MSMEs, it makes sense. 80% scrap is also generated by MSMEs. It's common sense. So, and again, just the way there is no technology or distribution to serve them, there is no distribution or technology to pick it back. So, big manufacturers are importing scrap, or, there are these small time aggregators who are again. So we are going to be focusing on reverse logistics, not only serving them what they want, but taking away what they don't want and giving it back to the manufacturer who can actually use that instead of utilizing or using natural resources. So to me, that's the contribution we can do in green steel. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jiten. I will just stay on you for a moment because you work quite closely with MSMEs and you understand, the various challenges / opportunities which exist in that sector. Now, of course, government initiatives for manufacturing sector, if that's the theme, and we know there is a PLI scheme, there is a PPP model, plus there are a lot of other incentives rolled out by government. How do you see it's actually benefiting the sector?
I believe if you talk about MSMEs, as I said, it's lost in translation. So by the time these benefits are, reaching the MSME, which actually they should have, there is a lot of loss in transmission, as they call it, and it's quite diluted. I'm quite appreciative of the government doing these things, and they are making us more globally competitive. They are making us more efficient in terms of production. But at the end of the day, who's selling it? The finished goods producer is selling the products, not the mill, right? So who has to be globally competitive? The guy who's producing it, who's actually making the product which is going to be exported. And to me, that is where maybe the government needs to support them more. It's absolutely amazing to have PLI schemes and Make in India. We are all for it. But I think somebody also needs to look a bit deeper down and have schemes specifically for the clusters. Maybe if you look at China, China have these, they have these clusters, which are a one-stop shop where you could have 500 MSME factories working as one large unit. So if they cannot build one large unit, it's, as they call it, is sum of all parts. So they are literally working like a sum of all parts. And it's actually a one large factory divided into 500 small factories. So maybe something like that can be done in India.
Thank you. Andreas, your views, thoughts from outside in perspective on the government interventions, or you want to recommend some of the things which as industry should looked upon by government?
The industry typically has have their own vision based on their experience, the perception they have of the market, of the consumers, depending on the room there is from their battery limit and the final consumers. And maybe their vision is limited on their own factory, no? Sometimes. From the government point of view, of course, the vision is higher, must be more longer term, no? Because when you make a new rule, it takes time to be applied, understood, and so on. As we are here, we are coming from 4 different organizations, no? The same could be improved, of course, that policymakers make more years to the industries, no? Because they have to collect their needs in the longer term. And if the industry, sometimes happens, do not have long term, they have to force, no? When, just to give you an example, the most impressive innovation in the markets came from outside. For example, Virgin is a brand making music. He disrupted the flights, no? Because low cost flights were developed by Virgin. Smart, the small car, was made by someone making watches. No, Smart are still on the road. Now, electric cars are made by someone which is outside the market. So, I think that the government has to force sometimes the industry to look at their own with a different view, no? In order to look at their own future in a different way. Sometimes when I met a new customer, I make on the table a question: where do you see you in 5 years? Because you are asking us for a plant which will be in operation maybe in 2 years. So in 5 years, you will be where? I think that we have lost sometimes in the last period our ability to look at the longer term. We have now all this, the technology is all here, no? This is powerful than the computer we had 10 years ago, more powerful, no? Here you have all, but the smartphone force you to look at the shorter term. So SMS is only 100 characters, no? So you are forced to look at small phrases. You are not more able to look at, to read a book, too much a book, no? How many SMS are? So I think we are to gain again our personal ability to look in the longer period, and government have to force us in the same way.
Thank you very much. We want to wrap up and just let's give last key takeaways from my panelists. So top of the mind, one or two things you want to convey from this panel, please. Starting with Mangal, over to you.
So I just want to conclude saying that the outcome is very, very important, and what are we doing everything for? So let's keep that outcome in mind. The outcome is also towards the planet, towards sustainability, towards the Indian population, becoming, living a life like developed country. So the steel consumption has to go up. Stainless steel consumption has to go up to match with what developed countries are doing. So whether technology is required, whether digitalization is required, whether the well-being, skilling is required, all these things are very, very important. They have to go hand in hand. So let's not ignore one versus the other. And all the stakeholders, the government being the primary, responsible for the entire the population as such, and for the entire country, I think they have to take the first step, and industry is in support to them, and making sure that the entire stakeholders are all working towards a common objective. I think this is the way I could summarize.
It's great to see that everybody is now focused on technology. For me, has only two things. One is efficiency, one is reach. If it can create a wider reach and it can make you more efficient, then the technology is really worth it. And to me, I'm very glad to see that there are companies, around me They are investing so heavily in it. We are investing on the front end. And I believe that growth is very, very important, but inefficient growth is the biggest curse. So let's try to build the most efficient, inclusive ecosystem along with the growth that we're looking for this industry. Thank you.
Okay, I'm be the last. I I I collected a very good impressions because I had the opportunity to hear from something different from me, their vision, their perceptions, their ideas, and I think this is one of the most important result of this kind of tools, no panels, where people coming from different countries, different experience, share their vision, their experience. So for me, it's very useful also from personally and professionally to have exchange views with these guys, and I thank you the organization to have had this opportunity.
Thank you. Yeah. Over.
Data, I think the entire industry, the steel industry, stainless steel, or whatever you call it, with Hitachis and other automation experts, and of course, the manufacturers, I think it's a very big ask. So I think I am fully with what Jitendra Agrawal has said, but I don't know how it is going to be done because he has really thrown a very, very big ask. Thank you.
Hello.
Thank you.
My name is Rajiv Thakur. I'm from Fortran Steel, which is a MSME. It's not a question, rather it's an understanding for me from Mr. Agarwal. He has very rightly mentioned about the inventory. The money and capital is being locked up in the inventory, which is a recurring problem in all the steel industries. And he has also mentioned about the digitalization aspect. So my question, it's not question, I would like to know that now the steel has become a commodity. In a way, it's like going to a mall, selecting a shirt and buying it. With the advancement of various steel technology, and in a steel, time is the essence. There are a lot of competition. If you don't supply the material to your customer, he'll go away, especially in case of commodity. So how to look into this problem where not locking up the capital in the inventory, at the same time fulfilling the customer's immediate requirement. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So I'll try to address both the questions in a manner that is, see, as Victor Hugo said, nobody can stop an idea whose time has come. So to me, it's not about my company. It's not about Stainless Bazaar. It's a collective need of the hour that, as you said correctly, you use the word commodity twice. And to me, this is a problem. Unless we start treating it as a product, till the time you keep looking at it as a commodity, everybody is only focused on how do you produce it at the lowest cost possible, because it's a commodity like a rice or a wheat. But we look at it as a product because my customer is not selling commodity, he is selling a product. So why should he buy a commodity? So our idea is, can we also sell him a product which is just in time, only how much, what they need, how much they need, and when they need. This is, I completely agree, it's easier said than done. Amazon took 8 years to go out of books to become a one-stop shop there today. So, it's a you can call it a wishful thinking, you can call it a vision, you can call it a passion, you can call it a dream. But yes, there are going to be multiple platforms like us which are needed with the support from Hitachis of the world, with the support from machine manufacturers of the world and the mills, everybody has to come together to create that ecosystem where the information flow. You talk about capital, and that is because of the lack of information flow. How it is going to be done, if you ask Mark Zuckerberg, he said, when I was building Facebook, I absolutely had no idea. I only did it because I did not have a girlfriend and I wanted a girl here. So to me, the idea is that let's start. I'm a firm believer. My father always tells me that one good thing about you is you don't think too much. If you want to start something, start, and we'll build it along the way. We will build it, we will figure it out along the way. So if it has to be done, it will be done, right? But then how it has to be done, I think we'll figure it out along the way. But to me, it has to be done. Once this information, so we are opening 3 centers. We are not opening 50 centers. It has to be done gradually. You have to collect the data. You have to do POCs, the product market fit, and slowly. But then I think once we hit the critical mass, once we know, yes, it is working, then it is a hockey stick growth. And to me, next 10 years, we can achieve this.
Thank you.
So may I add
Please.
something? In the past, the world has maybe 80% of production and 20% of services. No? Now, in particular, due to the impact of information technology, the software, the part of services is bigger and bigger. My personal idea is that, okay, you are producing a commodity. How you can differentiate from the other commodity producer? Only embedding in your product a service. Which kind of service? He is saying, I'll give you your foil when you are asking it at your site. And this is a service, but it's still selling a piece of steel. Okay, but the differentiation is about the service. This is a big, I think, a big jump in the industry, because industry see itself as a producer of product. In my opinion, is a producer of services. As short as you understand these things, you modify your approach to the market, to the final customer, to the maintenance, for everything. And you look at yourself in a different way and you improve.
Might be also for you is important to know how impression we take today from your speech. I can say that it's really depicted for me in personal, the cartoon of Inside Out. If something at the industrial line comes naturally, it means that you made it happen. You can reach to the integration between the technology and the machine. So if we can see the human behavior, it comes naturally. It's exactly like the cartoon Inside Out. No one can understand that it's some machine behind, that it works, because the output is certainly natural. And to me, it's exactly like this. When we reach to the functionality of the machine in a way that it comes naturally to us, without understanding which thing is behind, that means technology make it happen. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. In conclusion, I must say that, whatever we have heard in the last 1 hour, we have, seen a lot of such conversations across industries, but considering steel or stainless steel manufacturing as a sector is a traditional sector. But with the advent of, AI, data, IoT, all the use cases which we have just heard from the panelists, it's a clear indication that technology is going to help, not only just the processes side of it, but also on the business side of it. So with this, I would conclude this session. And thank you very much for your patient hearing. And thank you, panelists.